today.
Yes.
Season 2, Exes and Babies. We have a very special guest.
Very special.
Very, very special. We have our bonus mom, my son's bonus mom, Keisha Credit. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Happy to be here. Hello, everybody. My name is Keisha Credit. So I am Adama's second baby's mom.
Welcome to the club.
Yes.
It's a whole little club.
Right.
It's not a growing club, though.
Right.
Only 2 members.
Right.
Registration's over now.
Right. I'm honored to be here.
Yes,
thank you guys for having me, and we're going to have a good time.
We have a great time.
That's right. So, it was important for me. And Keisha too, she gets the mission of Exes and Babies, which I really, really appreciate. She's been supportive since day one when Adam and I actually had a podcast called 2 Exes and a Baby. Yeah. She was a huge supporter and shared it with her very large network. So I appreciate that.
You guys are on the cover of Parents Magazine. Yeah. That was super lit. Yeah.
That was really special. And so, we know that like bonus mom and mom relationships in the past or what we typically hear are so negative.
Stigmas.
Yeah, the stigma.
Yeah.
And I think it's just so important that we showcase what we've been able to accomplish, like building our relationship, being able to support Dior and doing that with Adama, and change the narrative, help people see examples.
Yeah, it's important. It definitely is, for sure.
For sure. But first I want to start with, you were pregnant yourself.
I am.
You were going to be a mother in another capacity, right?
Yes, I am growing.
Congratulations.
House full of boys now.
That's right.
So,
you have a boy.
Yes,
you have a boy coming.
Yes, boy coming in 11 weeks.
Okay.
Super excited, super stretching and growing. Another dynamic to our group. It's like everybody always jokes when they're like, what you doing today? I'm like, oh, I'm going to this podcast. Oh, okay, which one? I'm like, oh, it's Sydney's podcast. They're like, what are you guys going to talk about? I'm like, Adama. Like,
I know he's here now.
Right.
Making sure it doesn't get out of line.
Exactly. Yeah. No, but it's important because, we're growing. Our group is growing.
That's
Our family unit is growing. And, just like with Dior, it's all hands on deck. So now we're just having another one. Yeah. And it's a journey. Yeah. It's a journey. In evolution of family unit, and we're doing things that are not traditional, I would say, in the sense just because most of the time you hear about co-parenting relationships and it's like, it doesn't work, know.
It's negative.
They would never imagine that we have a group chat and I'm like, Dior got me effed up today because, and I'm like, you guys, we need to, and we're just all very involved. I think coming into dating Adama, it was important for, one, when we started dating, I don't even think I realized he had a kid.
Okay.
Like I knew he had a son, but it wasn't like, I don't know. Yeah. And we've known each other since high school. So I actually didn't think we were going to start dating really. And when we got a little more serious, I'm like, okay, do I want to date somebody with a kid? And I've always said no. Okay. I've always said, no, I don't have my own kids. Why would I take on somebody else's baggage?
It's a lot of layers.
And primarily that was because of the baby's mom. I'm like, baby's moms, that term.
We have a bad rep.
It's just so terrible. And it's like you think stress, you think burden, you never think help, you never think support, you never think network, you never think family. You automatically think of these detrimental relationships and jealousy and all the stuff. And that wasn't it, and then realizing, okay, you guys have a podcast together. Here are the things that you believe in. Co-parenting is important. I think especially in communities of color, we don't think of co-parenting as actually like a symbiotic relationship. I think co-parenting is typically like baby daddy, baby mama doing things and it's just, going. But I think what we've all developed is something that's just a little more entwined, balanced, communicative, open. And it just works. So I think I was more willing to date someone with a child, knowing that co-parenting was an important philosophy that you guys already had planted. And you guys already had your rules for, okay, when you two date, these are the things. If somebody gets serious, this needs to happen before, so you guys already had those ground rules. So I'm like, okay, cool. Well, that sounds like something, I can definitely work with. But best believe, if it would have got messy, I'd have been like, no.
I hear you.
Yeah, but we never got there, and it was, it's been pleasant and good and fruitful. So yeah, agreed,
1,000%. Adam and I had talked about, because we knew we were moving on, right? And we're attractive, wonderful people. Like, we're gonna find new people, right?
Yeah.
So we talked about early on, like, hey, let's make sure to like be thoughtful about how we bring that new partner in.
Yeah.
And kind of set up some ground rules, and not ground rules, but some guidance.
Yeah.
People don't like rules, right? But some guidance around how we are gonna have that conversation, introducing them, like when we're gonna have that conversation.
Yeah.
What are the goals and stuff? And so everything has been really seamless. I've been really good. Sometimes, like, I don't cry a lot, but like I could tear up thinking about how grateful I am that this has been so amazing. Yeah. And you've been an incredible addition. Like,
thank you.
I've thanked him. I'm like, yo, thank you. Like, real talk. Because he dated a few people before where I'm like, anyway, so no shade. But I said to say, when I've heard of you, obviously, you're very popular. So I heard of you and I was like, okay, people had good things to say. And so I was like, all right, bet. And I would hear Dior talking about Keisha. And this is Keisha. I was like, sounds like I need to meet this Keisha person now. Like, she's coming up a lot. And so I was really grateful. And I reached out to Adam. I'm like, hey, yo, I think it's time. Like, can I meet her?
Yeah, because we waited a while because Dior knew of me, but we had never met. Right. It was a while into our relationship till I met Dior, because he was like, I think he literally said to Adam, like, Dad, you've been talking about your friend. Where's the friend? Like, we need some friends.
That's my
and
boy.
To Dior, he's like, a friend means somebody that we can hang out. Like, what's up? So then I think I met Dior, and then you and I and Adam had a group meeting and all the stuff.
Right. And I actually have the talking points that we had. That we came up with. But I didn't want to get the timeline wrong, because that is important. Adam actually texted me or like talked to me and said, hey, can I introduce Dior to Keisha now? And I was like, yes. Yeah. And so I want to share that part came first, which I do appreciate.
Yeah.
And that communicated to me that, he was being very thoughtful and mature about the process.
Of it. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
And so I really like that. I remember when I was getting ready, I was like, okay, it's time to talk. And I remember Adam was a little resistant. He was just like, I don't know.
He definitely was. Yeah. He was like, let's make it quick.
Right.
I was like, well, we're going to get through it. And, because there is that, like, what if, like, what if we don't get along? What if we can't figure this out? Like, what do we do then? So, but luckily that's not what happened.
Right.
We met on the rooftop. It was a nice day.
It was.
And we talked out, are things that we desired, and it worked.
Yeah, we talked about well, first I think something that kind of eased his nerves and maybe mine and everyone's was, he's like, well, what are we gonna talk about? I was like, okay, bet, let me come up with some, like, an agenda. Yeah. Like I always talk about with my clients, like, it sounds silly, but I bring a lot of what I've learned in the corporate world into my co-parenting, coming up with, like, recurring meetings and like, coming up with a strategy and a thought process and, principles and team culture and stuff like that. So anyways, came with the agenda. I was like, okay, here's the guide, like the discussion principles or whatever. And we're like, okay, the Dior is number one. Like, that's what we're here to talk about. Like, but also we all matter too, right?
Yeah.
And so, and like, throw out everything about baby mama drama, whatever we've seen before, because it's not very many positive things. Like, let's start from scratch. Let's make our own thing.
Yeah.
And then also, really getting specific, like, what are the values that me and Adam have been trying to pour into Dior? And then, like, what do you want to add? Like, I'm a very team-oriented person. I think it comes from playing sports all my life, too. And so I recognize that when we bring in a partner, that they're going to have their own perspective, and I want to be open to that. And so it's very easy to do with you, too, because you bring your own perspective. You add this value to our dynamic as well as to Dior. With faith, right? Yeah. With your intentionality, like, I mean, sometimes it feels a little drill sergeant-y, but but he needs it. It's a great balance. It's a great balance. And I was really impressed at, like, how much you just jumped in and poured into him. Like she
the
tutors him. Go ahead.
The first time that I met Dior, I literally remember him walking into the door at Adama's place and me talking to him, and I was like, okay, what's your name? And and I'm like, I got down so I could be eye level with him, and he was 6 at the time and like half the size that he is now. And I was like, what's your name? And he's like, Dior. And I'm like, spell your name. And I was like, is that how you spell it? I'm like, okay, come on, let's write it down. And then he's like trying to write it. And I'm like, okay, we need to work on our writing. We'll do that. Right. And then I think it was his backpack. He was like, okay, where should I put my backpack? And I was like, Dior, you're at home. You should know, where's your routine? Right. And I was like, okay, we got to work on the routine. Yes. All right. And literally that next morning, I came back over because we were going out, and I had Dior start writing his name. Okay. Like I was like, this is how you write it. This is your full name, because his name is very long.
It is a lot of
letters.
A
lot of letters. Yeah. So I was like, you need to practice every day because your name is not easy to learn and learn how to spell right. And then after that, it was like, Teacher Keisha. Yep. What's up?
Learning
and
friend. Learning fun. They have learning fun
now. Yeah, because I think that was during COVID. And so Adama was working like on the computer most of the day, and I think I was still recovering from my knee surgery, so I had time like at home. I had taken a break from my businesses, and so I'm like listening to Dior on his like school thing. And I'm calling it school thing in particular because they wasn't really doing nothing. And I'm like, what are they doing all day? Like, I'm like, they are not doing nothing all day. Like, these little kids cannot concentrate like this. Right, like, what? So I'm like, okay, after you get off this computer fun, like, let's actually do some stuff. Right. And then that's when we started to like really develop an understanding of like, where is Dior educationally? Right. And I remember asking Adama, like, do you think Sydney's going to be comfortable? Like, if I give some feedback and some tips, because you guys had him in private school when we first started dating.
Expensive.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, I don't know if this private school is really all that is cracked up to be. And the first thing was if Dior could read. And, Dior's like, I can read. And I'm like, okay, read this. And he couldn't read it. And I was like, I don't think we're there yet. And I'm like, wait, we're having a fundamental breakdown. For you, reading is an activity. It's not a comprehensive understanding of the information you're taking in. And so when you hear that you can read, you hear that you can partake in an activity that is reading, but you are not reading. I was like, no, we need to do 3 hours a day. Let's get down to it. Let's figure this out. And he learned how to read in like 6 weeks after that. And then we all developed like a learning curriculum all together. And yeah, I mean, that was that after that. And I was really grateful that you guys allowed me to come in and be like, I can help with this. Like, I have the time to sit here and do this. Let's do it. Like, this would really help him in that way. And it was beautiful. It was a great bonding moment for us because him and I got that time to be like, okay, let me get to know you, and it was just cool for me. I had no idea I could teach a kid how to read. Like, none.
You did that, like, for sure. Like, yes, for sure. Adam and I have done things, but you actually brought him to that next level. And like, I know I have friends in my life who have to share their child with another mom, like a stepmom of some sort, right? And I know that they wouldn't be able to handle that, like, because they are the ones solving the problems for their child, right? But me, I'm like, thank you. Great. I don't have that
and
intentionality
that's how it should
and like
be.
drive. I'm like, okay, I'll get him a tutor or something. Or I also get irritable, like, so like being able to, when it comes to like teaching certain things, that's kind of how I was raised. So it's kind of like a generational trauma thing. But I don't have the capacity to sit for 3 hours regularly.
Because it's hard.
Yeah, and try to teach them. I remember when they had COVID and we had to help with stuff. I was like, I did not come. I mean, obviously I teach my son, but I could do the life skills stuff.
It's hard. It's hard. And it was very challenging. And through teaching him how to read, it was like Adama then also worked on his disciplinarian actions because it was like, okay, when you're not focusing and you're not doing what you need to do, there has to be consequences for that. And now it's not just you're a little kid running around. We are doing something. You need to focus. And just like really getting into like wall sits and like all the stuff. It was such a explosion of growth that happened very, very quickly. And I'm really blessed to always remember that with Dior, you know, and be a part of his learning. And so once he learned how to read, we would keep doing the learning fund, but then it was different, you know, and he's like, are we going to go back to that? And I'm like, no, we do not need to do that ever again. Like that was intensive. We are done with that. Yeah. So I really thank you guys for giving me that time with him to do that. And watching him grow is just, it's so cool. It's so cool. And it's very inspiring to be like, if you can teach a child how to read, I mean, it's one of the most fundamental things in the English language to learn how to read. However, it's very hard to teach. And I never, you know, it's just something we don't remember how we learned, you know, you just know we know how to read, but to be like, well, why does that letter make that sound? I don't know. You know, I don't know, but it just does. So yeah.
For sure. Jeffrey, did you have any?
I'm in awe, and I'm just sitting here listening. Like, this is amazing to me because I've known you for a while, and I know you talked about this, the relationship that you have with you and Adama and Dior and how you guys do the co-parenting thing, but to actually see it in person, I'm like, oh, I never accused you of lying, but I'm like, oh, you are lying. Like, y'all really
that's
do
a good point.
watch with each other for like, it's amazing to watch.
That's why we're doing this. Because a lot of people, even my mom was like, I was buying it, but it wasn't until Easter, this last Easter, Keisha started a tradition where we spend Easter together, all of us. Thank you. And it wasn't until my mom spent Easter with her. She's like, I get it now. Like, you guys are all confident in yourselves. You have a dynamic. Like, I believe it now.
That's where I'm at right now. I'm like, oh, this is what you was talking about. Like, like honestly, I ain't gotta say nothing for the rest of it. I'm learning. Like, I'm learning.
Absorb. Sit and absorb.
I do got one question though. For Keisha, of course.
Okay.
Let's go. How has that improved or affected your relationship with Adama once Dior came in the picture? Like, how's that changed things?
You know, I don't know. I would honestly say it strengthened our relationship because we talked about different things that are real life things, you know, talking about parenting, and this is before like removing the fact that I'm about to be a parent, you know, so it's like, it's really determining how close you are in your relationship because you're not going to be talking about parenting somebody else's kid with somebody that you're not, you know, fully committed to and saying, this is somebody I'm really serious about. So it's like me deciding to, and him allowing me to have such a close role in Dior's life was us saying subliminally and quietly that we're doing this. This is where we're at. Because it's like, I'm not going to invest so much in Dior and then not be there, you know, because that's traumatic for children. And I understood that. So even before I decided, because I know myself, I'm definitely someone who's like, okay, there's a gap there. I can feel that. Let's go. And with this, though, I was like, wait a minute. Because if you decide to get close to his child, you are deciding to get close to him without saying that. And you need to make sure that that's what you want to do, because what you will not do is walk away from his kid like that. You will not be that type of person. So that was like the undercurrent, and he and I had a lot of good conversations around that. And, you know, where are we? What do we want to do? X, Y, and Z. But then I think the dynamic of, again, him and Sydney already discussed that what they wanted from their dating experience with other people. So I understood, like, this is a mature relationship, you know. I'm not coming into this feeling like, cause if she wanna, you know, it wasn't like that, you know. So exactly, like, we never had to go through that. So it didn't really complicate things. It just kind of made things easier. And then I will say though, the schedule. So when Adama and I were dating, now this is before I understood like what co-parenting really is, because before this, I heard the word co-parenting, but I had never really truly understood it. So they were on one day on every other day. So every other day, it was like one of them would drop Dior off, one of them would pick Dior up, and then the other one would drop off at school, and then the other one would pick him up. And it was literally like that.
Okay.
So when it came to dating, I'm like, can we plan a date? And he's like, yeah, let's do it this day, Thursday, da-da-da-da. And then Thursday would come, he's like, oh man, I actually got Dior. And I'm like, you don't have a calendar where you knew that? Because now, and I'm very scheduled. Right. Adama knows now, like we have shared calendar. We all have shared calendars and stuff. Because I'm like, I'm very serious about my time. Not because I'm always busy, but because I like to sleep and I like to rest and I like to watch TV. And I like to know when I have enough time to finish my shows.
All right.
So I'm like, we had a date Thursday. I could have went and watched 90 Day Fiance. And now you done messed up my schedule. And I remember my friends and I had a conversation. And I was like, if he doesn't have time for me, like to actually date and for us to actually do this, like we can't do a relationship. Right. And, you know, I'm like, so what is this parenting schedule? Because it just didn't make sense. I'm like, it's like some days Dior was there. It was just weird. And then that's when I literally talked to my therapist about it, because I was like, if he don't got time for me, and you know, I understand dating a man with a kid, you have to have sacrifices and woo woo woo, but this is just a lot. Like, what is going on? She's like, well, what's their schedule? I was like, I think it's every other day. She was like, if you don't tell them that is the most unhealthy thing in the world to do. And I was like, really? She's like, no, it's really hard for the kid to adjust. It's hard. She's like, I'm sure it's hard for them. She's like, I don't know how they landed there. She's like, if you can find a way to kind of respectfully, like just ask them, are they open to? And I was like, okay, I think so. I said, look, it's worth a try, because if we don't figure it out, we can't date. Like this just can't work how it is. And so I remember talking to Adam, and he's like, this is what Sydney wants. And I'm like, but it's really chaotic. I'm like, I'm sure it has to be chaotic for her. And I was even thinking about for you. I'm like, how is she dating? I'm like, it's hard for you to date. Like, how is she dating with this type of schedule? So then when we went to week on, week off, which was super challenging, because I remember Sydney was like, I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I can be away from my son that long. This is a really big shift, and, you know, all of the things. But once we shift, it was like, oh my gosh, this makes so much more sense.
I find it dope how you say we. That's so dope. I just caught that. Like, she said, we shifted. Like,
everyone's impacted. Yeah, I remember we
man.
definitely had the on and off. I know no one understood it, and I totally get it. What I liked about it is I got to see him every day. So I saw him either in the evening or in the morning. But then you could do nothing else. So it was weird. It wasn't great, but I'm like, I'm available on Tuesdays and Fridays, and like, I can't do a week-long trip with you.
But see, even look at the energy of that, though. It's like,
it's a lot.
It
was a lot. And I remember so like, my mom's like, this, everyone was relieved. You know, my mom was like, this is much better. I just couldn't understand. Mom.
Don't relive the past, right? So let's go.
So this is so powerful, y'all, because you don't even know that I didn't even know your side of some of these things. So a lot of stuff, we're having these conversations for the first time, actually. So you guys are getting like the first, look at how this is going. Like we're both learning at the same time. But yeah, that's really great to hear. And I didn't know that was impacting other things.
Was tough. It was almost impossible to date with the every other day. Like it was literally almost impossible. And I mean, it was hard for Adama to shift too, because then it's like every day, okay, this is different. It was definitely a shift, but so much easier to balance, and so much easier to make routines and dedication and rules and normalcy versus, and even for Dior, like watching Dior blossom super quickly after that shift, because he was able to get comfortable and settled. And that was one of the things that was most impactful for me, was like, I would observe Dior, because I'm very much so like, let me understand how this is working before I'm like, so maybe we should, you know. And I remember just Dior being like, so what do I do? You know, he was kind of always like, what do I do? Like, where am I? Do I put on sleep clothes? Like, what time is it? Like, you know, he was always like, you're told where you go. This is what you do. Because I mean, every other day for the parents is hard. A kid learning the whole world, he don't know no sense of schedule, no nothing like that. So it was like watching him understand, You wake up, you do this, you go to sleep, you do that, you know, and watching him even out like his routine. It was very beautiful to experience and understand the importance of routine for children. I never really understood that. And I'm actually really grateful for my therapist because she's the one that taught me about that. And, you know, I'm glad that Adam and I's relationship was important enough that I spent my therapy dollars to be talking about his son at therapy.
Thank you.
So, you know,
I appreciate that.
One time for therapy.
yeah, you know, exactly.
One time for therapy.
For sure. Oh, we love therapy.
Yes.
What else? So, okay, kind of going back. I remember, I will say we did have one like hiccup back in the day when we first were getting started. It was Disney. It was Disneyland.
My gosh.
Wait, let me kick it off. So
Disney does that to people.
this because we've, like she was saying, like we got a great thing going. We have a way to communicate, and also going back. Sorry to the original conversation because I have ADHD and I like to jump around. Y'all know that. But jumping back, one of the things I said when we first met was, let's have this conversation now. Let's meet now before we need to, because we have conflict. So I want to have that conversation before it was like, oh, now we need to talk because now someone's feeling away, right? Yeah. And that would, again, set the groundwork for us to communicate. But anyways, I remember a long time ago, Adam and I had agreed, like, okay, if, like for big milestones, we'll both be there. And so I remember when you guys asked, hey, can we take Dior to Florida for a week? It was like during school week. I was like, whatever. They're having a good moment. Like, it's not that big a deal. And you guys promised to educate, like keep training him and make sure he got what he was needed to get out of the learning and what have you. And so, but I remember I was like, okay, but you're going to Florida. And I remember someone planted a seed. They're going to Florida? Are they going to Disneyland? And so I hadn't gone. I wanted to take Dior to Disneyland a couple years back. And I asked Adama, do you want to come? Like, should I go to Disneyland without you? With him? He's like, nah, just hold off. And so I was like, okay, I'll respect that because I didn't want him. Disneyland's a big deal, right? We're in America. That's a big deal for folks. And so I would hate to miss that milestone. And so when he's like, oh, he gave me like a lukewarm, like, I don't know. I can't promise we won't go to Disneyland. I was like, and that's what set me off.
Which he did that on purpose. I will add the background.
Go ahead.
Adama is he's funny. Love him to death. Because we were never planning to go to Disneyland.
I felt that.
We were never planning to go to Disneyland. It was the fact that Sydney was so like, you guys cannot go on the trip if you guys go to Disneyland. First of all, Disneyland is like $300 a child. Yeah. We were going because my timeshare had it was like a cheap weekend. So we were just trying to get out of town. So when she's like, Disneyland, I was like, girl, ain't nobody trying to spend all that money. We ain't going to Disneyland anyways. But then she started making it a thing. And we was like, you making a thing, and that ain't even a thing, but now we gonna make it a thing.
I didn't know it wasn't a thing.
Right. So she's like, no, Disneyland is something that you experience with mom. And we was like, we don't want to spend the money. If you want to spend the money and take them to Disneyland, like, girl, go ahead, because we are not trying to do that. But then she was like, no, you guys cannot go unless you can agree to this. And then it became like, okay, wait, now we have to assess our boundaries and like what we're doing, because it wasn't just Dior. We were meeting my friend and her two daughters too. Again, never planning to go to Disneyland because 3 kids is too much to be taken to Disneyland. But it was like, but if we had wanted to go and maybe the other mom wanted to go, not being able to go because Sydney wanted that for herself was where it became, no, we have to say no. If we want to, we have to be allowed the comfort to do that. There's still other firsts that he's going to experience with you, and that this is just a fun trip. We're just going to get out of town. It's all right. But yeah, that was like the day before though. It was like the day before. Yeah. And so I was telling Adam, I was like, you know, for mom, some things are just really big moments, you know? And I was like, but babe, tell her we ain't planning to go to Disneyland. He's like, no. I was like, oh my God. So now we just about to do this whole thing and we ain't even planning to go to Disneyland. We literally stayed across the street. And again, Disneyland's just too high. It's just too high. It is. And I was like, no, we went to the pool. And they had some turtles. The kids were impressed.
They had a good time.
We went to hibachi restaurant. They had a good time, and that was fun.
So yeah. I'm curious, Sid. What? I don't want to use the word triggered, but what about that made you respond that way?
Me and Adama have I don't know if it's unspoken, but even when we were in a relationship, we had this idea of fairness and like 50-50, like we do 50-50 now. And I just thought it was unfair that I said, hey, I want to go to Disneyland with you in California. Should I pause on that trip so that you have an opportunity to be a part of that first? And he said, yes, pause. So I offered that. I gave him that I honored that. I expected that in return.
Mm-hmm.
I expected him to honor that. And it sounds like he was planning on it, but it just, that energy. Yeah. I don't think he liked that I was, maybe the way I said it, or like just the energy of like trying to control the agenda.
Unless
y'all can't
go.
But I was like, but I gave you this, and like, what's the big deal? Like, you don't even care about Disneyland. Like, why I care about it? So I just, and like, even as we think about other milestones, we'll want to think about like, and I've seen things like this happen in my family where a stepmom bought a car for my uncle's son.
Mm-hmm.
A man wants to buy a car for his son, usually, right? I don't mean to tell their business like that, but it was a big deal. I'm a little kid and I remember this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it was just like, I learned then, it's like, okay, there's certain things that certain family, it's just really important to certain family members to be able to part of that. So like, I was like, okay, maybe we got to think about that too. Like, what are other things that we need to be mindful of? Like for example, Adam is Senegalese.
Yeah.
I want to take Dior to Senegal, but Adam is Senegalese. He should be the one to take Dior to Senegal. And so just like those kind of things, I think he'd be really disappointed if I was like, okay, bang, I'm going to go to Senegal. Yeah. I can't promise. I'm in Nigeria. I might fly down there, might not. Like, it's just crowds down the street. So anyways, that was like my thing. So I did feel like I was like very reactive. And I was like, oh, I'm like really showing my ass right now. But like, but I was just like, I got this.
Yeah, it was just like,
it hasn't been like that since.
Yeah, it was like we were never planning to go, and it was like, what you yelling for? We like me and Adam were both like, what you yelling for? We ain't doing that. But like now that you trying to nugget me back, like what?
They're like, we just might.
Yeah, I was like, wait,
we
what's
might
the
go. I
beef?
can't promise. Eventually, he did say, I won't be going. I was like, yeah. And then we sizzled out. I was like, go ahead. But of course, I couldn't tell if he was thinking I'm like jealous that you guys are having a trip together.
No,
and I was like,
it was the control aspect, and I think in co-parenting, that is something that both parties have to be very cautious of. And I say both because that's not something that I'm involved in, you know, and not all the conversations am I involved in. Like we have our group chats that we talk about a lot of things, but they talk about their things. And there'd be a lot of things I'd be like, that's y'all. That, look,
which is what you said.
You know, I'm like, that's y'all. Figure out that Disney thing. Look, because whatever. Like, I'm like, but knowing boundaries, you know, and like co-parenting is great and we have a great relationship, but there's always going to be some boundaries. There's always going to be some things. And I don't measure around those things.
I don't measure the success of our co-parenting experience by the amount of conflict. Yeah. It's about how we manage conflict. Now, we do happen to not have a lot of conflict, which I fucking love. Yeah. I'm sure we all love that. And that's the thing. Like, I don't know if people get that me bringing a positive energy to you into this space gives me so much peace. It's selfish, low key. Like, I don't want no drama. I obviously don't want Dior to be sensing that. He can sense everything, right? Like, he's done that to me before. It's like, you have a friend. I feel like left out. Like, I want to meet this friend, right? Yeah. And so I just I've always wanted to, first of all, also, I think one of the things that helps me be able to co-parent well with you, because people assume that the baby mom is going to be jealous. Oh, you got my man now, right? And so I was raised a feminist. I was always raised a feminist. I went to girls' schools. I went to women's college. And so that core value leads me, right? Also, I don't like drama. I'm a peacemaker to some degree. I mean, we all have our moments, right? I'm not perfect. But that led me to, I was like, I don't want drama. And I know that whatever I give is what I'm going to receive. I've seen in my relationship with Adam where if I came at 100 in a negative way, he would do it back, right? And so I was like, okay, if I want to, have certain results, I'm results driven. Yeah. See, there's that business term, right? I'm results driven. I'm data driven, right? And so, so I like, if I want the result to be us getting along and us to be able to like have a space where we can pivot or, change things as we need, I need to make sure that I need to cultivate a relationship with y'all where there's no sense of you versus us or like too much control, things like that, right? And so that's what's like assume positive intent. And the things that have made it hard in the past sometimes is when I've had other people in the world, family, friends, be like, "Oh, did you see what she posted?" I was like, "No, I don't actively like search her stuff. Like, what did you see?" And like, "Oh yeah, like you won't believe." And I'm like, if I don't know what the point of me knowing this is, like, I don't know what are you trying to accomplish here? Because I feel like I had to set a boundary with a few people. Like there's nothing wrong with what she posted. She posted a video with my son. It's fine. We've actually talked about this already. Yeah. And so
I'm like, he's a kid in my life. Like, right, exactly. This is, this is, Yeah.
And he wants to be famous. He wants to be YouTube famous.
Right,
so I'm like,
exactly.
put Bo in there. That's his dream. But I've had to really set boundaries because people don't know how to interact. There's this idea of like women being against each other. I think that feeds into like we're competing with each other. And in fact, as I've been growing this business and growing other areas, one of my friends was like, yo, I see you're really working hard. Are you trying to compete with Keisha? And I was just like, yo, I was
we
like,
we're not even the same
know me.
Like, we're not even the same lanes.
And
like,
I'm like,
that's
you,
so interesting.
And even if we were like,
I'm
that's
just like, so fascinating.
It was like, I was so annoyed. I was like, first of all, like, what are you trying to accomplish here? Second of all, you don't know me if you think that this is the first time I've ever tried to achieve something and it's because of someone else.
That's fascinating.
So I've really had to like set boundaries and educate people. Like, I think this is new for everyone. All those people love me. Like, it wasn't like they're trying to be negative or anything like that, but they just don't know how to like, how can I support you? Do I need to make you feel good because you feel threatened? So let's put her down.
The norm is, oh, what's this chick? Let's size her up. What's our energy? You know? And it's like, no, like our holiday, we've now done 2 holidays together. So now we've done 3 Easters together. The first,
talk about it.
So the first,
this is so amazing to see this. I'm just like, yo, this is crazy.
It's
possible, yeah.
It really is. It really is. So Adama is Muslim. I am very Christian. Wake up. My first ritual is read the Bible, and I do comparative readings, which means I read 3 different versions. So I read King James, New King James, and CIV, because I believe that you should be able to really understand the text that you're learning. And so for me, I'm very much into not just religion for faith and belief, but also context and how to live day to day. So religious holidays are big for me. I love Christmas. I love even the decorations, all the stuff. So Easter, I'm like, okay, what faith is Dior? What are we doing? Is Dior Christian? I'm like, well, what's Sydney? What are we doing? I get that everybody has their own things, but we will not be raising a tepid kid. He is going to know God. He's going to love God in whatever capacity we decide, but we need to decide. And we need to decide, it is Easter. It is Resurrection Sunday. Are we getting on our white suits? What are we doing? Because I was really like, no, this is important for me.
Right.
Because if this is my family, I don't want to be celebrating something that's important to me and not with the rest of my family. So the holiday came, and you traditionally practice Christian beliefs.
I'm spiritual mostly.
And so I'm like, we need to do Easter. And Adam was like, okay, yeah. So I'm like, so we're going to do it together. Like, all of us are going to eat here, and like, we're going to do that.
So that was your idea, right? The first one?
Yeah, and he's like, what? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, we're going to do it here. We're going to do deviled eggs, like all this stuff. He was like, why do we need to? I'm like, because I think it's important for us to show that we can do this all together. And I think it was like one of the first moments where it was the first moment, because I remember Dior was nervous as hell. He was so nervous to have us all in one space, like together.
He didn't know how to act.
Because
we all have different energies.
Listen, we all have very different styles, like very different parenting styles, very different just behaviors in general. Right. So when Dior's with his mom, he's one way. When he's with us, he's one way. So now he's in a room and he's like, holy shit.
Short circuiting.
Literally. I remember Dior just being like, okay, Keisha's asking me to do this. My mom's asking me what is happening? Right. But we made it fun. It was so fun. We dyed eggs. We did an Easter egg hunt. Dior got to find all the eggs because we didn't want to do that.
He gets attention from 3 adults. That's great.
I mean, it was so fun, and we decided to make it an annual thing, and so now we've done 3 Easters, and now we've added on Eid, which is the holiday of the end of Ramadan for Islam. So we went to mosque together 2 weeks ago.
That was filthy. That was so dope. That video, y'all doing that was so cool. I was like, yo, they really mess with each other for real. Okay,
right? We was in there. We went to mosque together. That was powerful. Yeah, and so because at home, we pray together. I don't do like the up down of the Muslim prayer, but I will sit with them. So Dior and Adama will do it. They'll do the actual, up down one, because it's hard on my knees, and I'd be like, once I get down, I don't feel like getting back up. So I'd be like, I'm gonna just sit here.
You almost started with the pregnancy too. I was like, girl, no, we sitting down. We're sitting down. Use my excuse to sit down.
Because in the mosque, I'm like, in the mosque, what are we supposed to do? You know, I didn't know the rules. But yeah, so I think partaking in those experiences where Dior gets to understand that it's a group. It's not one side versus the other side. We communicate, we're here together, we do this together, and it's fun. Like it's the one time of year that we get together and just exist, eat, hang out. We did it at Sydney's house this year. Last year was at my house, and then the first year was at Adama's apartment. And it's beautiful to break bread together.
There's so much here. I wish we had way more time because there's so much to unpack.
We might have to do a part 2.
We have to do a part 2
with Adam.
I
know, right? Yeah.
But I wanted to go back. And this, I'm gonna make sure I'm not gonna be messy with this question. But I'm gonna go back.
Get messy. Go ahead.
She ready? We warmed up. Now we warmed up.
Right. Exactly.
The friends, because a lot of times with co-parenting, baby mom, baby daddy, the environment can influence your decision making.
Oh yeah.
So how was that for you at first when you told your closest people, like, hey, I'm dealing with this situation? How was that initial reaction, and how did you overcome it, or how did you go along with it?
My friends are squad. Like my friends are squad. That is one thing for sure. It wasn't even Sydney. It was Adama, because it was like, girl, if he don't got enough time for you, then sis, it's not like that was the thing. Because I was like, I require dedication and time. Like I want my time, and I do not want my time to be cut short. I want my time. That was bigger for my friends than Sydney. With that, I think from the beginning, I started talking about like, oh, they have this podcast, like they do this thing. So even my friends were like, why they got a podcast together? Like what they still be talking about together? Like, you know,
people always
assume, what they be talking about together. But I told them, I said, you know, we're going to all get together and meet before I get into a relationship with Dior. You know, we're going to establish these boundaries. They didn't really, no, I don't really think there was many like, well, what's she about? Nah, I mean, they did their research. Pretty much.
It's like dating now, right?
Yeah.
They're like, I have friends who do background checks on people.
You got
the little investigative team, you know?
Yeah, and there wasn't really much room for mess. And I think Adama was very much respectful, responsible, and mature in how he would talk about their relationship, and how he would talk about their, you know, ending and separation and where they were now and all the things. I never really felt room for the mess, you know, and Sydney never really brought mess. Like there was never that really came up. We haven't really had those messy type of moments.
Except for Disney.
Except for Disney. That was hard though.
So Sydney, same question to you, because you said somebody came at you talking about, are you trying to compete with Keisha or whatever like that?
I haven't talked to that dude since.
Okay.
Anyway, I mean, we have, but whatever. Anyway.
No, because like let's face it, both of you guys are popular people in the city, so you get these powerful forces together. Two titans, you know.
Yeah, which I think that's the anti-feminist rhetoric of two women who have strong personal brands can't thrive in the same space or the same room, and that's definitely not the case, and that's not the truth. I mean, for me, I'm not used to energy of haterism. Like that's just not something that I be receiving. And when I receive it, I don't even be realizing it, because I be like, oh,
is that what you're doing?
Like a lot of times our friends would be like, you didn't see that bitch? She was tripping. I was like, oh, I didn't even know that she was there. You know, whatever. Because that's just not the energy that I want. And I'm like, if you don't bring it to my front door, I'm not coming out. Like I own my home. If it's not on my yard, then we'll ever move on. Like, so I just be like, whatever. But she never came with that. It was never a thing. It was Adama's time, I'm telling you.
That was almost the deal breaker.
That was the deal breaker. Shoot.
I think one of the things that I want to say this to all the baby mamas out there. One of the
word for the baby mamas.
Shout out to all the mamas.
That's the section. You guys need that as a section on the podcast.
Absolutely.
Word to the baby mamas.
Word to the all the influences. But I just want to say one of the things that helps me to be in a good headspace and be able to, you know, contribute positively to co-parenting, you know, with the stepmom is, one, I'm grounded in myself, right? I know myself. I know my values. We had great closure. I mean, it was hard and like, it wasn't a great breakup, but the way we went about it was like, I think a pretty good thing. And we even had like a therapy session after, which I think helped a lot too. And so me just being grounded, going to do therapy, have my own things going. I'm beautiful. Like I don't have any, like I don't have anything to be worried about. I don't know why. I understand why maybe other women might struggle, but I don't know. I think just continuing to focus on what I care about. Obviously, we have a great dynamic too. I want to be a good example to my son. I want to be a good example to all my friends and all the people, who might be witness to me. And so there's that. So again, just like doing the work on me, right? I have all my projects that I'm interested in. I have all these things that give me joy. Also, I just don't like drama. I don't like being negative. I don't think I have a jealous bone in my body. And even if I have something jealous, I'm like, I'm gonna go get that. I'm inspired. I don't get jealous. I get inspired.
And let's be real. I literally, so when I got pregnant, I was like, wait a minute. Okay, so Sydney get a week off every other week.
Okay.
I said,
co-parenting is the best.
I said, hold up. I ain't gonna get my week off.
You gonna give me the baby?
I was like, listen. I said, we need another group talk.
So I got 2 babies my week.
We can balance now. I'm like, look, but I think it's interesting because you do have to know yourself. You do have to be very confident. And I don't see couples that work in the way that our group works together because I think there's just, if you are not ready to say that person is no longer your man, I think a lot of times people break up and they don't go through the closure experience of therapy, of healing, of moving on, of actually having separation to say, I do not own this person. This person does not own me. This person doesn't owe me anything. We are now doing what's best for our child, and that is our shared interest. In most separation experiences, that's just not what we do. Especially in Black community, we don't really go to therapy and we don't stick with therapy enough for it to work and have those positive outcomes. So the self-love, the impact of that doesn't really trickle over as powerfully as it should, so that when you move on, you're able to move on in a healthy situation and not bring baggage from the outside in, because it's so easy to do. As a woman, jealousy is like, it can kick on at any moment and you just never know. But that just wasn't where we were at. And I think we did it so well to the point where when I got pregnant, it was so hard for Dior to wrap his head around the fact that his mom was not having a kid.
Okay, I didn't know if you guys picked up on that. Because he said that to me. He's like, wait, how am I having a sibling? You're not pregnant.
Yeah, he was like I don't.
Pregnant. Not in those words, but he was very, I always told him I was going to give him, I was like, don't worry, I'll give you a baby, because he always wanted a sibling, and Keisha beat me to it.
He was so confused. I remember us driving. It was me and him in the car, and he's in the back seat, and he's like, so when I go to my mom's, is the baby gonna come? And I was like, no. And he's like, well, where's the baby gonna be? And I'm like, at home. And he's like, yeah, but that's at my mom's for that week. And I'm like, no, that's where you go, but the baby lives here. And then he kind of got quiet. It was like for 5 minutes, and then he's like, so when me and my mom go out of town, the baby's not coming. And I was like, no, I don't. I was like, maybe if Sydney wants to do that. I was like, but no, the baby is, me and Adama, so it will be here. And he was like, okay. It was like his mind was just like, what is going on? I don't even understand this.
Shout out to Dior. He's got all this. He's got all these personalities. But what I love about it is Dior gets to be poured into. So from all these, Adama brings his faith, you bring your faith, I bring in my faith, right? And even when he's come home saying things that I don't necessarily agree with, but it comes from Christianity and maybe Islam, like tattoos and stuff like that. I'm like, part of me, I have to self-manage.
When was he talking about tattoos?
He's like, I don't know where he got this from. We can cover this now or later. But he was just like, oh, God doesn't like when people get tattoos. I remember thinking in my house, let me self-manage. Because
I don't know. We've never talked about that.
That's good to cover.
Yeah, no, he didn't get that from us. I know. No, we've never even talked about that.
That's another rule we have to connect before we just take.
We
have to connect before we just go off of exactly what George says, right?
We never even talked about that.
Okay, well that's good to know.
I had piercings out thinking I never had any tattoos, but I think we just don't have tattoos because we just don't have tattoos. But yeah,
Where are the piercings?
Adam is saying he don't have tattoos because of religion.
Okay.
Adama is chocolatey.
He
ain't gonna get no tattoo because it probably won't be too visible. And I'm like, whatever.
It's only one way to find out. But even in that moment,
that's not cool.
See, because it's the thing. No, Adama be trying to mess with Dior and not understanding how serious Dior takes everything.
Because he's literal. He's a kid.
He is, yeah. And then he comes home with this crazy rhetoric that we don't believe in tattoos.
See, thank you for clearing that up. In that moment,
shout out to the baby fathers in the world, man. Shout out to the baby daddies.
And we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that.
Right,
We're going to get to the baby daddies. But one of the things that I just want to make a note of for those parents, because I think this is important to know, is like, even when my son came home with that idea, I don't know where he got it from, not from y'all, okay, cool. I had to self-manage because like, I don't want to like poo-poo them, right? Like I don't want, and I haven't done my research, I haven't come to talk to y'all like, oh, yeah, what are y'all talking about? Anyways, and so, but also, I do like that Dior's getting multiple perspectives. Mm-hmm. He's getting multiple perspectives. He's learning about multiple faiths. And I think that's going to make him a very dynamic human.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, you get to choose later.
Dior can pray his ass off. I mean, I probably shouldn't say that. And like, yeah. Look, that's how me and my guy be talking, okay? But no, seriously, like this kid, and I always be like, people always say that I have a very strong gift of prayer. Like when I pray, like I go deep. I'm very like, God is God. Mm-hmm. And so like every meal we pray and I go in, and Adama normally just says Bismillah. That's all you have to say in Islam. For me, it's like Heavenly Father, Lord, God, thank you. Like, let's bring our grace. Let's bring all the stuff. And so we'll incorporate Dior into those prayers. Mm-hmm. So now we'll have Dior pray, and Dior be saying stuff, and I'll be like, okay. Mm-hmm. Like he be praying. I'll be like, you better shout the kingdom down.
Profound.
Where the beauty of different perspectives comes together, because this 8-year-old kid is praying with his mom, and that was just so beautiful for me, for us to have that spiritual connection of different faiths at one table, understanding the larger feeling of God, and to hear Dior pray. I mean, literally, I'd be like, bro, okay. Amen.
Right.
Like,
he's eloquent. I was gonna say I have prayed before for sure.
Yeah.
But I don't typically do it before food. But I will say Dior and I we'll be getting the sage out, manifesting, stuff like that. So we have our own way of connecting. But yes, I do love that he's getting all these dynamics. Now, back to the topic of baby daddies. And I know we're getting close on time. I want to ask you, what do you think Adama did to help this be healthy? Like, well, how did he set us up for success, you think, as stepmom mom?
I think really just being a good person, because I wouldn't be willing to do this with anybody else that did not possess the qualities that he has just as a man, and as a father. And I think I think with him in general, I think he's very good at knowing my strengths, listening to me, and knowing where to give me a boundary. Because like I said, I'm very good at being like, we can work on this can improve. He's always like, you're the improvement queen. Like you do that so well. But there's things that he knows about you where it's like, okay, Keisha's feeling this, Sydney's gonna snap about that. How do I mediate this situation so that we can all kind of win? And I think he's very good at doing that and navigating that and allowing both of us to be blossoming and thriving and having our ways together.
Right.
So I think that he plays a great unifier, because it's not a mediator. Right. It's just a unifier, and understanding what everyone wants and everybody's perspectives. So I think just who he is as a person, and he didn't bring baby daddy energy. I never felt like you guys had a baby mama, baby daddy relationship. Like, if anything, it was like, why are y'all so communicative? Like, how... Because normally it's like, oh, I don't want to talk to my baby's dad,
Or short answers.
And it wasn't like that. We've never had that experience. Like, parent-teacher conferences, we're 3D.
Right.
We're all asking questions.
That's right.
We need 3 printouts.
That's
you know, and normally, and normally they're surprised.
Normally, teachers out there, we need 3 printouts.
Yeah, because normally they're surprised because they're like, I think, and I'm the surprise factor, right? Because there's normally mom and dad.
To the parent-teacher
but
conference.
then I come and I'm like, so wait a minute.
And engage, and you know what's up because you tutoring it.
Exactly. So I'm like, so when you're saying that this is not, you know, and they're like, who the fuck is this?
Right.
You know?
Right.
But I think allowing each of us the room to have our important areas, and we are very different.
Right.
I am very disciplinary and strict, and I think Adama is very disciplinary and strict fun. And Sydney is very holistic, worldly experience. And so I think Dior gets all of those different pieces with all of us, and we all allow each other the room to blend all of those things together.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Shout out to Adama, man.
Shout out to Adama.
Yeah.
And I will say, I want to give a huge shout out to him because this is an important piece too. So when I learned that you all were pregnant, right? Because that's a big milestone for you guys, right? For one, the good thing for me was like, okay, cool, she's gonna be around. I can like really dive in and like connect, right? And then 2, Adama, he drove over and like met me in person. He's like, I have something to tell you. I was like, okay, it's probably something about Keisha, brother, probably taking the next step or something. And when he told me, I was grateful that he told me in person. Like I didn't find out on social media. I thought that was really mature. And like we even kind of shared some apologies because I didn't have a great pregnancy. We didn't get along very well during my pregnancy. And so some of the things that you're seeing, I didn't see. And so with him apologizing and like recognizing that, and I apologized for some stuff too. Like I was ready to welcome everything. You know what I'm saying? Like something about that just felt so respectful and healing. I felt very healed in a way. And so I'm grateful for that so that I can be present. And I actually had a dream last week that I was babysitting your child, and I was holding this beautiful chocolate baby.
I'm excited.
And I was like, this is my little boo.
I'm excited.
I don't know what your baby's going to call me.
Week off after all.
I know, I was like, wait, I thought you at least gave me a year before I was babysitting. But like, that's something I want to ask you, you know, and we're going to be wrapping up soon, but like, what do you want from me, or what do you envision, or I'm not going to be stepping on no toes unless you invite me to do something. I'm not going to do it. But like, this is your world. This is you're having your baby, right? But
I mean, your mom already asked me, so I already had an answer for her. So we've already talked about it.
my mom got her a Mother's Day gift.
And a baby gift. Yeah. So her mom actually already asked, like, so what, you know, your mom, even at the gender reveal, her mom was like, I don't want to push anything, but I want to be grandma. Like, I am still here. I want to love on your kid just as much. I want you to know that. Like, she was literally like holding my hands, and she's like, I'm grandma. Like, this is us. We're doing this. Like, we got this. And I was like, yes. Okay.
So when y'all book coming out, man?
Yo, it's coming. We're going to get the chat GPT going.
But yeah, to answer your question real quick.
My bad.
To answer your question real quick. I don't know, you know, because I think I'm open. I think that we'll figure out what works, because I don't want Dior. My biggest fear is that Dior will feel separated because the baby's not going back and forth between households and not understanding the differences of that. So I do think it will be important for us to figure out, how do we balance it? And I want to make sure that this one has a close relationship with you, you know? So I don't know. I think we're all going to figure that out as we get there. But I'm definitely not like, nah, Sydney, you know, like, nah. You're in the fold. Like,
we unconventional.
You know, we
that's
need to.
I'm like, we got to make sure there's some cat hair at your house so,
so
your child isn't allergic. But we don't want your baby allergic, so when Dior comes over, I'm just saying, we're going to rub some cat fur on you.
Oh my God, no, we're
and
not.
So, what was I going to say? Because we got cats. Anywho, oh my God, we have so much I want to cover, but this has been so wonderful. There's other thing. Is there anything else you want to share? Like, any advice you give to a bonus mom, stepmom?
No, I don't think so. I think we've given tons of gems.
Absolutely.
I've learned a lot. Like, I love this. Like, I feel like a student today and learn. You know, for me, it's like, it's possible.
It's possible.
But you have to be self-aware. You got to be honest. You got to have great communication.
And give grace and have empathy.
But also you got to make sure that you're coming from a place of strength first. So that way you can be vulnerable.
Right.
Because if you both weren't strong, this wouldn't have worked.
And I think having those principles too, even if you're not ready, if you follow those, even if like it's like a robot.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I gotta text them at this time.
Yeah.
But that can help guide you.
Yeah.
This has been amazing. I appreciate both y'all for doing this.
Thank
I've
you
learned
for
a lot.
being an incredible bonus mom, jumping in, doing
Mother's
a great job.
Day, yeah.
Yes, and so with that, I wanted to give you something.
Oh, you guys are so sweet. Oh my gosh.
Let me tell you guys, it is very, go ahead and open it.
Okay.
It's very hard to find a Mother's Day card for a stepmom from a mom.
Oh my gosh, it is black.
Yo.
Motherhood is a sisterhood.
Target.
Oh my gosh. I love
Motherhood
that.
is a sisterhood.
Oh my gosh. I'm going to read it. I'm going to read it. Okay.
And
oh my gosh.
That first thing.
Oh, let's see. Mom approved bonus mom. That's sweet. That's really sweet. I really appreciate that.
You've been such an important part of Dior's life and my life. And I'm so grateful that you're on the show. You've supported us.
Oh,
we'll continue supporting each other.
Pika,
Read it now. Read it now. You don't have to read it now. But like, you can read it to the baby now. Like, you know, when you guys are going to bed and you want to bond. I loved, me and Dior had a book like that when I was pregnant, and I would read to him every night, just about every night. And it helped me connect. And then when he was born, it was just like special to read it. Now he's outside of the womb. And it was a peekaboo book similar to that.
This is really sweet. I really appreciate it.
A lot more Black children-centered books out there.
Now,
Jeffrey's a children's book author.
Say yes, they are.
I know. What's my book? Why my book up? And then there's some lactation milk in there because that's important. But yeah, or not milk, but tea.
Tea. Oh yes.
Yeah, I love that.
Oh, this is so sweet. Oh my gosh, yes.
Thanks for being on the show.
I'm so grateful. Yeah, thank you guys. This is awesome.
So
yeah,
y'all dope.
I hope that it was awesome. So
it was. It is.
Until next time.
We got a number 2. We got
yes,
Adama. Adama's got to be on the podcast again.
Right.
No pressure.
Right.
No pressure.
All the pressure. Well, thank you.
Yes, thank you guys.
It's a wrap.
Until next time.
All right.